Hi guys, I am here with Gio Garcia. Gio, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing good. Tom, appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to talk MLS, LAFC versus LA Galaxy opening up this Saturday, so I'm excited.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very timely. And yes, so to date stamp this, it's 21st of February at the moment. This will come out slightly later, but you are in the unique position of covering both LA teams. Now, how on earth did you get to this position?
Well, to be honest with you, I've always been I've always been a fan, obviously, of football. So we call it soccer out here, but
Mm,
just growing up watching the Mexican national team, and I lived half my life in Phoenix. Just quick story. So growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, we didn't have an MLS team. So whenever the Mexican national team would come, that would be exciting. So I ended up moving back to Cali around 2016, 2017. I was covering sports, and I was covering the NBA. I was covering the Dodgers, baseball, and doing a little bit of NFL. Then I started doing a little bit of LA Galaxy, LAFC. It was when Carlos Vela and Zlatan came in
Oh
2018
wow.
when they came. And I was
Yeah.
like, once Zlatan and Carlos Vela came, I was like, okay, let me see if I can cover these teams and stuff. And I started watching them. Obviously, Zlatan is a personality in itself and who he is. So I was like, okay, that's a big name. I got to see.
Mm,
And then just seeing Carlos Vela and everything. So that's how I kind of fell into it. I was like, you know what? So I switched over because I've always kind of had my own thing. I switched over just from covering NBA and all these different leagues to just being, primarily soccer. And I felt like that's where I could grow the most and that's where I could provide a lot more insight and some of the content that I'm able to create. And, I was like, well, just covering them, obviously, I'm part of the media, be able to go to games. And I was just like, well, I was always like, well, I was like, why don't I want to go to as many games as possible? That's when I first was starting out. So I was just like, let me just cover
mm.
both teams. And now, like now I'm in the unique position where I go to both teams game. Now it's a lot because because trying to do all this, and but now that we have the podcast and everything like that, it
Yeah.
brought kind of like a responsibility to to share my opinion and all these different things. So kind of just led into that and just my passion for the sport. And I was just like, well, if I can watch now Chicarito and Carlos Vela, and we had obviously Gareth Bale last season, all these different things.
Yeah.
I just feel lucky being able to, cover both teams and be able to talk about them and give my perspective.
That's fantastic. I mean, we had a chat with Corner of the Galaxy a couple of weeks ago, and he
Josh,
was saying how the really cool guy. Like, yeah, we had a lot of fun on that one. He was saying how it really is a fierce rivalry, even though the LAFC
oh
haven't been
my
around
God.
that long. There's still there's a real friction in there. Why do you think it's got so intense after such a short amount of time?
I think the rivalry. I think anytime, right, when you have, put it this way, to give you like an example, when the new kids come into town, right? The LAFC are the new kids. They
Yeah,
came out, very loud, very bold with the signings and everything. The colors were flashy and everything. I think once you started to see the rivalry and once I think the game. I think also the players helped out a lot and obviously putting on amazing performances, and you had such a strong fan base that LAFC really built up, right? And then you had the Galaxy, who have been the champions of the MLS. And whenever you have
mm,
new people on the block and making all this noise, and you have the previous predecessors, the previous kings of MLS, right? The,
yeah,
the the old fans are never gonna like the new kids, even though, right? And then also a lot of LA Galaxy fans, or some. Let me say, I'm not gonna say a lot, but there were some Galaxy fans that moved on to go support LAFC because regardless
oh
of
right,
where they were closer, there's this rivalry part of the jabs that they throw at each other that, depending if you live in quote unquote in the downtown area of the city where LAFC has their stadium, it's closer to some people. um, the Galaxy Stadium was a little it's southern, it's in Carson. So they throw the jabs at each other that, they don't consider that, the Galaxy is part of LA or whatever. Those are the jabs, right? But then also when you have such a strong team like LAFC, what they were able to do and the partnerships that they've been able to do and all these different things.
mm,
But for the longest time, LAFC wasn't able to beat uh the LA Galaxy and quote unquote in like big games or important games, and to this day they still haven't been able to beat the Galaxy at home or at
mm,
Dignity Health Sports where the Galaxy play. So that's one thing that the Galaxy obviously currently have, and the fans will use that, right? So any edge you can get on your
Yeah.
opponent, you will. And for the longest time, the Galaxy fans would be like, "Oh yeah, you haven't won a championship, right, in the 4 years or anything like that." So like, "Oh yeah, maybe you beat us or you won, but you still haven't won a championship. What is you haven't won an MLS Cup, right?"
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that changed until last season. So that was there was
Yeah.
this whole stigma, and also just the buildup. People, the fans on both sides hate each other. Even people, even though it's been 5 years now with this rivalry, because now in the city, it really makes you, if you're a soccer fan, if you're a football fan of these two teams, right?
Mm.
It makes you decide if you're an LAFC fan or a Galaxy fan, because now you have a decision to make, right? Because before you only had the LA Galaxy. So
Yeah.
when I started covering the MLS, it's when, like I said, when it was with Carlos Vela and Zlatan. So I came in. That's when I actually started watching, started covering. Before then, I knew about David Beckham and all these different things. But when
Yeah.
I actually started watching it, I got to see this rivalry grow. I got to see the things that LAFC were doing, and I got to see the things the Galaxy were doing. There are two just different ways how they went about it. It's two different managerial in the sense of how they run their clubs, right? It's just very different. And I think, whenever you're talking about professional clubs, there's always pride. There's always pride with
Yeah.
fans, right? There's always pride, even if there's a new club that comes into town. There's always going to be that pride, like, oh, we don't like you. There's, you still gotta, like the Galaxy fans, you still gotta catch up to 5 MLS Cups, and then the LAFC fans, well, we got one, so it's like,
That's
you
it.
start, it's there, so it's a heated rivalry. Fans don't like each other, but even some of the players, you got players like Carlos Vela and Chicarito who are great friends,
Mm.
Um, it's not an animosity relationship where like Zlatan would throw jabs at Carlos Vela and Carlos, it seems a little bit more friend. It seems like a little bit more friendly, but still, Chicharito wants
Yeah.
to be, whether they will say this or not. They want to beat each other when it comes Saturday. When it comes, the last time they played each other was in the playoff game. It was exciting. It was thrilling. It was a game winner with the LAFC ended up winning. And it was a heartbreak. I got to talk to Chicharito after the game. You could see the heartbreak, just anytime you lose like that, right? And you could see the excitement on the LAFC side how it was. So like the rivalry just grows and grows because these teams, even though LAFC was by the better team, LA Galaxy's right there. They have a solid squad.
Mm.
So there's when they play each other, there's not much of a difference, even though one team has done a little bit better than the other.
Yeah. Now, do you think that the emergence of LAFC has been in general, a good thing or a bad thing for the Galaxy?
I would say it's a good thing because whenever you have a competitor or enemy, you would assume is going to want to make you better, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like for a while, up until I didn't watch the MLS until LAFC came in and
Mm.
Galaxy came in, but from what I've heard, that it really made Galaxy step up their game. At least the people that own the LA Galaxy, which is AEG, and kind of change things around because they were just the ownership group was very stagnant. LAFC just kind of just changed. You go to it's the BMO Stadium. They have the supporter section.
Mm.
You feel the energy when you're there in the stadium. You feel the energy there, and they have it a consistent. And those are things you saw that the Galaxy they changed it. They now have supporter stands. They didn't have supporter stands until I think last season was
Oh,
the
cool.
first year. So there's certain things that they changed. And then also on the LAFC side, they were just going young, and now you start to see them get players from Europe. For a while they weren't going to get older players from Europe, right?
Mm.
They signed Giorgio Chiellini, they signed Gareth Bell because and what some of the jabs were like, well, that's the Galaxy way of doing things. And then you kind of see LAFC kind of switch their strategy a little bit, but I think it's helped them in the long run. Switched
Yeah.
up, and you need more veteran presence, whether it's a Giorgio Chiellini or a Gareth Bell, which ended up helping them win an MLS Cup champion.
Yeah.
You see teams take from each other, and I think that's what you should do if you want to be a successful club. You got to see, okay, maybe we gotta change things on our end. And I think it's helped the Galaxy, it's helped LAFC. And whenever you have a rival just 15 minutes down the road, it's only gonna it should only make you better if you want to get better as a team, as a club, and as a fan base.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Let's move on to the fan bases. Actually, what do you think are the main differences between the fan bases? I imagine that the LAFC ones are obviously a bit newer around, but what do they have different characteristics? Do you think?
Well, yeah, well, right now you bring up an interesting question because reporters are boycotting the team, which is
Right, of course,
makes it
yeah.
very interesting because of the Saturdays being a massive game, right?
Mm,
I had a supporter come on my show, and I think the general manager Chris Klein, he's been in power since like what 2014. He's not, he's had a mediocre performance as a general manager and what he's done with the club, but he got his contract renewed, and they didn't announce it. They didn't announce it, like, I think they announced it through a YouTube video. They didn't send out a press release or anything like that because even last season they did not like him. They did not like him, and for good reason because he had some of the signings he's done, and this season, this off season, the Galaxy got fined $1 million and can't bring any international players during the summer transfer window because they cheated. They registered a player improperly. Let's put it that way,
yeah.
and they got fined. So now this upcoming transfer window, the Galaxy can't add any players. The last summer transfer window, they added Ricky Puig, Martin Caceres, Brugman, which
Mm,
completely changed the team. And if anybody watches football, they know that the transfer windows can help you make or break your team. So in a lot of aspects, it's he's kind of hurt the fan base in a way,
mm,
and it appears that it really appears that the owners, AEG, don't really care about their fans the way the LAFC ownership group, and the way the people they do. Not saying everybody in AEG is like that, but it just goes to show that with LAFC, everybody's connected together with the LA Galaxy fans because of the individual Chris Klein. You know, the fans don't want to support him, so by that way, they're boycotting the team, which makes it an interesting situation because if you're a player, if you're a coach, you're kind of caught in the middle of it.
yeah,
You want the supporters support, but you're not going to go against your supporters, and then you got your boss was not liked by the supporters, but you see them out. It's just an interesting dynamic. And look, it's sports. There's always going to be fans are always going to be a voice of opinion, but I think I'm with the fans on this because if you've been in power since 2014 and you haven't been able to make these changes, and you kind of hurt your team with the
yeah,
signings that you've done and the things that you've done, and now you can't bring in a summer transfer window, it just makes it tough. So the biggest difference is that everybody's riding the same ship with LAFC and the Galaxy. There's like tensions. There's tension, so
yeah.
it makes it for an interesting dynamic between the clubs.
Yeah, and I imagine so. And I imagine when you get someone like Chris Klein, who hasn't really shown any contrition for what he's done, and you've got a fan base who some of which have been there since the very start. I mean, they're obviously one of the founding clubs. You think there is an expectation there to act at a certain level and to carry certain standards, and I think he's really has let them down.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's unfortunate, Obviously, we'll see how many fans show up to the game on Saturday. I still expect Galaxy fans to show up to the game. I mean, it's a one off. It's a big game. It's at the Rose Bowl
Yeah,
Stadium. It's a historic stadium, so I could see fans showing up for that game. But maybe when they go back to Dignity Health Sports Park, maybe not showing up to the games there. So we'll see. Because the Galaxy, they have a solid team, but if you don't get the support of you don't have the support of your supporters, it gets
mm.
interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I did a big piece on this on the video I did on home field advantage, and yeah, it's absolutely massive. So yeah, that's huge thing. So in your time of covering both teams, who do you think are the best players you've seen from both sides?
I would say
Yeah,
Zlatan and Carlos Vela. Man, what was it, the 2018-2019 season? It was insane.
they're icons, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was insane because Zlatan was just so Zlatan, I gotta ask him questions and everything, but he said, "No, I'm the best player in the league," and this and that. We're like, and there was one time like Carlos Vela, I think it's a 2019 season, but Carlos Vela was having his years is when he won
Yeah,
an MVP. He won the Golden Boot, but Carlos Vela was going off, and they were gonna play each other. I think at that time, Galaxy was struggling during the season, and the Galaxy were playing at home. And you always hear Zlatan say some outlandish stuff, and you're like, but this time I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I never said this to him, but I was like, I think he went a little too far there. Like he was a little extra cocky. Let me put it that. I don't recall what he
yeah,
said.
yeah.
The game comes. dude scores a hat trick. He scores a hat trick, and I was like, he scored it. It wasn't the first game where he scored. From the half field or anything like that.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
but he scores a hat trick. He scores a goal from outside the 18. He scored I think 2 goals from outside the 18. He scores a hat trick, and everybody's just in shock, and we're like, that dude could say anything. Like, he backs it up. He's one of those
Yeah.
players that talks smack and backs it up, and just seeing that rivalry with him and Carlos Vela, and that's where it really grew. The hatred really, really grew because you needed a player like Zlatan to to
Oh
to
man, yeah.
say outlandish things and to be hated. And I think the thing about Zlatan, which I feel like doesn't get appreciated as much, is that he knows how to be he's a true superstar. What I mean by that, he performs on the field,
Mm,
he talks big game, and Zlatan always did that. And I respect him so much for that because he anything times Zlatan would say, like, it would just go, right? He would say something, he posted and just go. I think he really helped the MLS grow a lot during that time too, because just of the clips and everything like that. Look, a player like Zlatan is unique
mm,
in its ways. Not every player can be that way. Not every player can say those things and back it up. But I think you need players like Zlatan that are going to be vocal and then to get those clips, because it brings up a rivalry. We see in the NFL, we see in the NBA, and Carlos Vela is more reserved. But then I remember we had asked him. And they had asked him, they're like, "Hey, Zlatan said he's the best player in the league," and he's like, "Well, Carlos Vela said something along the lines. He's like, look, the best players in the world are at that time was like he was Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Messi,
yeah.
and then obviously you would include Zlatan in that group as well. But he's like, at this point in time in my point in the career, I'm better than him." And I was like, yes. I was like, yes, that's what we want to hear, because Zlatan
Yes.
had kept jabbing and jabbing, and it was those are things that Zlatan brings out of players like a Carlos Vela, who's more reserved and doesn't say as much things. And I think that's been amazing. Look, being able to cover Gareth Bale and Chiellini was cool, but as of yet, we haven't seen something like that from them. Gareth Bale scoring the game-winning goal was amazing. Got to see him after the game and
Mm.
everything. That was amazing. But I would say, as of right now, I would say those two.
Fantastic. I mean, they are properly iconic heroes of the sport. And yeah, like you said, Zlatan is a perfect villain, but if he's on your team, he's a total hero.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Looking at the prospects for the season, but how do you think each one will get on? Obviously, LAFC coming off in the back of the win, they must be riding a bit of a wave, but yeah, there could be room for disappointment there as well.
Yeah, look, I think the news just came out today that the MLS came out with a new playoff format, so it's going to add
Yeah.
a couple more games. So I think that changes a lot of things too. Now that
Mm,
nine teams from each conference um, can make the playoffs. So it's 18. I think it's 18 out of 29. 18 out of 29. Let me do
yeah.
the math. So it's like 60, 70, I don't know, 60%. You have a good chance of making the playoffs.
Mm,
LAFC have CCL. We have the CONCACAF Champions League
mm,
here, so that if you win that tournament, then you get play in the Club World Cup. And we saw the Sounders do it this year that they played in it. I think that's priority number one for LAFC. That's the biggest tournament. That's the biggest trophy I think you'd get this season. With the added games, I saw someone tweet out with U.S. Open Cup, 34 regular season games. We have Leagues Cup, which is going to be a tournament between
of course. Yeah, yeah.
MLS and Liga MX. So both
Yeah.
leagues are going to shut down during the summer, and they're going to play that tournament. Um, I think a team, say for example, LAFC has a shot at playing. They can play all those
Mm,
games. If they were to win every trophy, which I think would be hard to do, they would play over like close to 60 games. And I think that's a lot.
right.
That's a
For
lot.
what?
And
It's a 22-man roster as well, right?
yeah, for the roster, for the restrictions and all that. So I think they're gonna. With all that being said, I think LAFC is gonna prioritize CCL. They're gonna prioritize
Mm,
other things, other tournaments over the regular season. And we've seen something similar with not as many games that we've seen the Seattle Sounders not prioritize the regular season. but it paid out for them because they won the CONCACAF Champions League.
Mm,
I would see a similar thing for LAFC. I still think they will have a solid regular season, but they may not finish at the top. I would say maybe middle of the pack, but I still, now that 9 teams from each conference can make it, I have a
yeah.
middle of the pack, not because they lack in talent, but because there's too many games and
Yeah.
not a lot of roster
Mm,
flexibility currently. So I have them finishing middle of the pack. I have them going deep in CCL. I have them potentially, I have them going to the final. I'm gonna be honest, going to the final. Because if they don't win, I think a lot of depends for LAFC. If they don't win the CCL, if they don't go to final, then I think you see them be more bullish with the
mm,
Leagues Cup, with US Open Cup, and then the regular season. So I think it depends how they do, but priority is gonna be CCL, and then they move on from there. On the
yeah.
Galaxy side, speak on those terms, I think because they're not competing in CCL, I think certain teams that are are not going to have a strong pull for the regular season kind of helps the Galaxy because,
Mm,
like I mentioned earlier, they're not going to be able to bring in players from the summer transfer window. So for the most part, this is going to be, they can still add players. They still have a DP spot. They can add a franchise player up, I
right.
believe,
Yeah.
April 24th, 29th, when this regular season, when the transfer window closes for the MLS year. I think the regular season is going to be a lot better for them. I still will have them around fourth or fifth.
Cool.
They could
Right.
finish potentially top four because I think they can focus. They're one of the teams that can focus on the regular season,
Mm,
and maybe they may not have the depth for a Leagues Cup, but they may have a depth for the U.S. Open Cup. And I think a trophy
yeah.
that they could really stride for is the U.S. Open Cup. They have a solid midfield. They have a solid Chicarito and Dejan Joveljic, Ricky Puig,
Mm,
Brugman. The midfield's nice, but I think for them, it's just the lack of depth, and they not being able to add those pieces during the summer transfer window is going to limit them. But I still see them finishing strong in the regular season.
fantastic. So both, a season to look forward to for both sides, I reckon. There. I mean, as long as we can get the fan situation sorted out on
Yeah,
on the Galaxy side there. So yeah, just coming into the end now, I just want to finish up with a few other questions, a bit more general. If you don't think LAFC are going to do it again, who do you think might take the league? Sorry, the MLS Cup.
MLS Cup, man. I really like Philly. Philly's a strong team,
Yeah.
but they're in a similar situation with LAFC. Because they're also going to be playing in the CCL. But they're watching them. I didn't watch watching these teams. I focus more obviously on the LA teams, but just seeing the way Philly made the run, obviously how they were successful during the regular season as well. But just seeing how big their center backs are, how mobile they are, and what
Yeah.
the team that they have. Philly's an amazing team, and they can also be one of the teams that can win the CCL. I would say Philly for sure, because if the CCL doesn't work out for them, I think they're
Mm,
definitely going to push for the regular season as well. I like Austin. Austin FC is really good. I think another year under their belt. I know they were a little disappointed. They didn't perform as well during the regular season. But Giroux is an amazing player. He's an exciting player.
yeah.
I'd say those two teams, but Philly is my next favorite player, my next favorite team because they're so strong and how they do things and how they play as a unit. It was amazing watching. They have an amazing. They were there, like I said. They were a Gareth Bale extra time goal away from winning the MLS Cup.
So close, man. Yeah, yeah. You cannot get close. I mean, this is one of the reasons that the league is so exciting. It's so competitive. The margins are that thin.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's fun, and I think anytime you see how the league is growing now, like we talk about the new Apple deal that's going to
Yeah.
bring on, you're going to be able to watch all these games and all these different things to do. I think it's exciting. I think the broadcast, the how you view MLS on your TV or on your
Mm,
iPad or wherever you watch the game is going to get better with Apple, because before you had to either watch it here in America, it was either Fox Sports or ESPN, and you had to subscribe to 3 different providers, and it was annoying. I was like, why can't I just have one? You're gonna have everything under one roof. Apple's one of
mm,
the biggest companies in the world, and the production quality is going to be amazing. So I think with this Apple deal, I think it's really, really going to grow, and I think it's really going to add a lot of excitement to the league and overall the production. And we'll see it firsthand this Saturday, which I think is very exciting.
Oh, hugely exciting. Yeah, the quality that they've pumped out so far is fantastic. There's some really nice stuff on there already. So, final question from me, and it's the big one. What do you think the score is going to be in El Trafico?
Man, I said this earlier. I'm gonna be super, super ambitious, and I want a lot of goals. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna
Cool.
say 4-3. It's the first game of the year.
Awesome.
These games rarely disappoint. I'm gonna say 4-3. Look, it's the first game of the year. Your defense is not as let's say it's not as good as it is once you're in the middle of the season, right? I'm gonna say 4-3. I give the edge to LAFC.
Fantastic. Right, we're gonna get the bets on for that one. That's perfect. A lot of goals. It's going to be very entertaining. Finally, then, Gio, tell everyone where they can find you online.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can follow me at Gio Garcia LA on Twitter. Check out the podcast on LA Soccer Hub. LA Soccer Hub's all throughout Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all that, posting the content and stuff. So yeah, that's where you guys can find me at.
Fantastic. Yeah, get the views from the only guy who walks both camps in LA. I love this. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Gio. So yeah, thanks
Yeah,
again,
no,
and best of luck with everything.
yeah, no, thank you, Tom. Anytime you want to have me on, feel free to reach out.
I will do, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.